Raise your cable TV bill.
We are different.
As women.
And men.
Different in our bodies.
And our brains.
Different in our perceptions of what we see.
And how we see it.
Chemical and physical differences.
Molding our brains.
The following program is part of the Discovery Signature Series.
Modern technology has provided an astonishing new window on the inner workings of the human brain. And what has emerged is new evidence of a distinction between the structure of male and female brains. The new findings about brain gender may teach us much about ourselves that will help us learn faster and get along better, without undermining the search for sexual equality.
Those who have had not will fight those who have had.
These startling new discoveries may ultimately do more to unite us rather than divide us.
I think people are afraid of this type of information being misused. And I think it's up to the scientists to show what the differences are and hope that society doesn't misuse that information.
The more we know about the male brain, the more we know about the female brain, the more we can apply these things in our daily lives with our friends and our lovers, in our educational system, in our political system, in our business contacts around the world. If we put our heads together the way we were designed to do, we can create a more cooperative, more fulfilling society.
Even before we're born, the sex we are seems to be the most important thing about us. Some parents just can't wait to find out.
Now I can see the sex of the baby. Do you want to know?
Of course.
What do you think it is?
I think it's a boy.
Do you think there's a penis there or not?
It's kind of hard to tell.
Want to know?
Sure.
It's a girl. Okay?
Oh, well.
There's nothing there. You would see a little penis in there, okay? Nothing there.
Once, that news would have decided so much about this baby, from the color of her wardrobe to her probable choice of career. Today's parents are less likely to color code their offspring. Still, children often defy the gender-free nursery, acting distinctly girlish or boyish, and science is now beginning to reveal why.
It goes to the object.
In this series, we'll examine clinical evidence that the brain, like the body, has a gender, a sex. Does different wiring in men and women's brains change the way the sexes think? Could it explain the natural female fluency in reading and speech?
She sells seashells by the seashore.
Or why boys seem happier with things and the space they occupy? Does this explain the jobs men choose? Are men born stubborn, naturally aggressive, and much more likely to turn to crime? Do differences in the wiring of our brains explain our distinct approaches to relationships? Can understanding brain-sex difference help us through the ups and downs of married life? Why do women talk the language of love while men go for the sight of sex? We look at new evidence that homosexuality may be the natural result of hormones, the key chemical ingredients that begin to mold our brains in the womb. These parents-to-be hope they're giving their children the best start in life, nurturing their unborn talent with gentle whispers of encouragement to the womb.
I know she likes rubbing you, so it seems comfortable.
And when you know when you're fed, when you don't want to be fed, when you do want the bottle.
At workshops like this one, today's parents try to condition the minds of tomorrow's generation.
2, 1.
Maybe some of this coaching does rub off, but other factors are independently at work, shaping the destiny of the unborn child. In the womb, the baby is forming a mind of its own, and that's the result of nature, not nurture. Chemistry, not conditioning. The genetic sex of a child is determined at the moment of conception. 2 X chromosomes uniting means a girl. An X and a Y results in a boy. At 6 weeks, hormones play their part. A fetus destined to be a boy produces a flood of androgens, male hormones that redesign the fetus along male lines. A future female makes few androgens and no redesign is triggered. Sex hormones are powerful. Too much male hormone and a genetic female will be born a boy. Too little, a genetic male is born a girl.
Listen to the water, listen to the water, rolling down the river.
Nature usually matches our bodies to our chromosomal sex. But what about our minds? In recent years, science has grown curious. If hormones can determine the shape of other organs, what effects can they have on our brains?
It is highly likely that there are parts of the human brain that are affected by hormones during the prenatal period. And in the same way, it's the presence of androgen, or testosterone, that masculinizes probably certain areas of the brain, and the absence of it that feminizes certain parts of the brain.
Yeah, that's great.
Hints that male and female brains are wired differently begin to appear within a few days of birth.
Oh, isn't that nice? Yeah. A little bit more here.
Studies show that newborn boys are much less sensitive to touch than girls. Girls react more strongly to sound. Noise can seem twice as loud to a girl as to a boy. In most cases, girls respond more readily to soothing and comforting words. From a very early age, girls show more interest in people. They gaze intently at a silent face twice as long as boys do. If the adult talks, girls usually maintain eye contact even longer. Boys often ignore the voice. Girls can make out familiar faces from photographs months before boys can. Girls like to discover speech with another person. Boys are just as happy to gurgle at a thing. As they grow up, the interplay of culture and brain sex difference shows up in their stories.
Me and my brownie troop went to Pizza Hut. Colonel Corn shot Major Pizza. My sister is cool. She is funny. She plays softball. She also has a good arm too. I killed them, and 3 of them are dead. Now I am safe. Now they're gonna argue. Now
Both usually prefer same-sex playmates, perhaps because the games they play are so different. Most girls love to act out homespun dramas.
if she wants to move out, I think that she can move out. I'm her mom. No, she may not. She went there, and she didn't like it. She has to stay until she get older.
Girls often accept junior newcomers to the group.
She's too young. Hey, I'm 19.
Younger boys, however much they want to join in, will usually be excluded from the play of older boys.
Have to go get it, and then...
With boys, it's you guys or hey you. They don't bother to remember the names of their playmates.
Hey, come on, let's go knock on our other friend's door.
Most girls prefer more peaceful pastimes, exploring the territory of relationships and caring.
Want to come to the dance with us?
Boys are drawn to machines that do things, a world of action, function, and mechanics. Many girls' games involve rules about taking turns, and they're less directly competitive. Boys' games tend to be more unruly, more competitive, ranging over far more ground. Of course, these are averages, not absolutes. Many girls are perfectly at home on the playing field, and many boys in the playhouse.
Jetpack and tried it on.
Food! Ah, screamed Mouse.
The gender picture is also complicated by parents' expectations. But are parents just reinforcing what hormones set in motion? For some scientists, hormones are paramount.
They are responsible for all the activity that goes on in the brain. And unless we appreciate the importance of hormones, we can't really understand the behaviors of different people and of the different sexes.
We will return in a moment to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
Tales of nature, capturing wildlife at its most wild, exploring its diversity, and showing how animals interact with each other and with us. It's an all-new season this fall, only on the Discovery Channel.
It may surprise you to learn who, over 30 years ago, was the first car maker to build cars with seat belts, to make safety glass standard, the first U.S. car maker to offer anti-lock brakes, and who today offers more models with dual airbags than any other manufacturer. That company is Ford Motor Company.
We're committed to making safety innovation an important part of quality.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working.
Was it eons of isolation from the rest of the world? Or was it the way the wind blew? Or the way the rain fell? Was it the angle of the sun? Or was it a bird blown off course that found its way here with a single seed that grew and changed the course of history? Somehow, we just evolved differently. Australia, feel the wonder. For your free 130-page travel planner, call 1-800-395-7000.
How often do you get the chance to fly Qantas? With more than 40 flights a week to Australia and the South Pacific, including more non-stops with morning and evening departures, quite often, actually, we go further. Qantas.
You're taking a few clients out to dinner. No big deal. And then 4 more show up. Not the time to run into some preset limit on a bank card. That would be embarrassing. But you know you can handle this. Instead of worrying, you order more wine. The card, the American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
True life stories, investigating the criminal mind and those who seek to understand it, then celebrating the heroes, people with bravery to spare. It's an all-new season this fall, only on the Discovery Channel.
Here you are.
Where enemies turn friends.
Let us combine our resources in the name of progress.
And the walls come down.
They're not bad guys anymore.
It's the new world order.
2 million? My friend.
Where the players change.
I would very much like to help your country.
But the rules stay the same.
Abort! Abort!
Gene Hackman, Mikhail Baryshnikov, Company Business. Joan Wilder's a romance writer who was just looking for the right guy.
Wimp, loser, too happy.
But now, she's in the wrong place.
First of all, the stupid dame got on the wrong bus.
At the wrong time.
Please, I need your help.
Got a deal.
Sometimes romance is the biggest adventure of all.
It's nothing but trouble.
Kathleen Turner.
The best time I've ever had.
Michael Douglas.
Never been anybody's best time before.
And Danny DeVito are romancing the stone. We now return to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
Recent neurological studies indicate that sex hormones shape the brains of men and women differently, much as they differentiate the shapes of our bodies. In men, the main sex hormone is testosterone, a natural anabolic steroid, much like the artificial ones taken by athletes and bodybuilders. While female hormones break down protein and store fat, testosterone uses protein to create muscle. That accounts for the different way we're built. Testosterone holds the secret of the sex drive. Women have far less of it than men. But when testosterone peaks in women, so does their libido, just as in men. In women, the hormonal picture is much more complicated. Estrogen and progesterone, the two main female hormones, vary on a monthly basis, triggering the menstrual cycle and the mood changes that often accompany it. In some women, hormonal mood changes can be so extreme that they mimic insanity. Nicola Owen was a happy, carefree 14-year-old. Then came puberty and an unbalanced flood of hormones that turned her world upside down.
I suddenly changed from being the girl that had everything, as everybody thought I had at 14 and a half, to a grotesque, overweight, unattractive, not only physically, but emotionally and intellectually, teenager.
For the next 3 years, Nicola and her parents shared a living nightmare. The ballet shoes were thrown aside as compulsive bouts of eating almost doubled Nicola's weight. She began drinking. She stole from her family, threatened her mother, and tried to poison herself. After repeated suicide attempts, Nicola was sent to see a psychiatrist, but the pills he prescribed were powerless against the tide of rage that ebbed and flowed within her.
I just felt there were two Nicolas. There was the good Nicola, and there was also a bad Nicola. And the bad one seemed to have taken hold of the good one. It was as if I was just turning into a really evil person.
Nicola decided to destroy herself and the memories of the old Nicola by setting fire to her bedroom.
Killing myself seemed to be the only answer, but I wanted to do it in a way that would punish me even further. The lovely bedroom was going up in flames. The pictures of me looking wonderful were going up in flames. I didn't want nice pictures of me anywhere, because that wasn't me anymore. That had gone. The nice Nicola had gone.
Mercifully, Nicola was not killed, and her family escaped unharmed. But amid sensational publicity, she was charged with endangering life and intent to kill. She was taken to prison, but before she came to trial, psychiatrists recommended committal to a special hospital for the criminally insane. There she met Dr. Katarina Dalton, a pioneering researcher specializing in premenstrual syndrome. As a result of Dalton's work, British law now recognizes PMS as a cause of irrational behavior.
I have seen so many of these women that I first met in prison, looking terrible, dowdy, aggressive, irritable, smoking non-stop and looking terrible. And then you see them a year or two later, and nearly no one would recognize the difference. They become normal, vivacious, happy women.
Dr. Dalton discovered that Nicola's seemingly insane behavior corresponded with abnormal hormone patterns which always appeared just before the onset of her periods. She felt sure that Nicola's hormones were so severely out of balance that they affected the chemistry of her brain. Dr. Dalton gave Nicola injections of progesterone, hoping to rebalance her hormones. The alteration in Nicola was so drastic that the prison doctors reversed their diagnosis of insanity, and the judge presiding over her case was equally impressed.
He then said, "I'm totally convinced that Nicola is suffering from severe premenstrual tension. And I'm going to let her go free from this court today with all my very best wishes for Christmas. It was just a miracle. It was fantastic, yes, to know that the nightmare was finally over.
Nicola's miracle has proved an elusive one in the lab, however. In repeated clinical studies, women with severe PMS responded no better to progesterone than to a placebo. The hormonal picture, as it turns out, is far more complex. For 30 years, scientists at this UCLA laboratory have been unraveling the secret of the awesome powers of hormones. In rats, hormones are no small influence on the brain. They determine its gender and structure. Researchers use newborn rats because, unlike other mammals, rats' brains are not yet fully structured at birth. By injecting them with hormones, scientists can give a male rat a female brain and vice versa.
By giving a female rat testosterone, male sex hormone, early in life, when we now put her in a mating arena, she will be the animal that will be mounting a receptive female. She will even attempt to mount another male.
Professor Gorski's film shows a female rat exposed to testosterone before her brain circuitry was complete. She acts like a male.
In the case of the male, if you remove his testes early in life, let the animal grow up, now expose him to what we call a stud male, this genetic male is now going to be, again, exhibiting the precise behavior of the opposite sex.
The black and white male rat, deprived of testosterone during brain development, behaves like a female when confronted by the white male rat.
So it would appear on this type of evidence that these sometimes dramatic behavioral, functional sex differences that we recognize are in fact the outcome of hormones acting on the developing brain in a permanent way.
But do hormones determine the sex of the brain in animals closer to us in the tree of evolution? Monkeys share many human characteristics. So what does the research on primates tell us about the link between hormones and behavior?
Originally, a study was done to show that little boy and little girl monkeys were not the same in their play behavior. For example, male juvenile monkeys showed much more rough and tumble play and much more chasing play. And again, that's another difference that you often see in human children. That was followed by a series of studies in which the mother monkeys, while they were pregnant, were injected with androgen-like hormones, sometimes testosterone.
Scientists have known for years that male hormone triggers the development of male sex organs. So it was no surprise when the genetically female monkeys were born with male genitalia. What the researchers were waiting to see was whether the hormone injections had also changed the brain and therefore the behavior as well.
And sure enough, those baby monkey girls and juvenile monkey girls whose mothers had been treated with these male-type hormones during pregnancy showed rough and tumble play and chasing play very much like the boy monkeys, certainly higher than girl monkeys who had not been so exposed. So that gave us another piece of evidence in a species closer to us. It's not really nice to say higher, but closer to us, that again supports the fact that hormones are having an effect on brain development and therefore on how behavior is expressed after birth.
We will return in a moment to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
Sponsored in part by Ford Motor Company.
We Americans have some very particular ideas of what we want in our cars and trucks.
I feel like the car's like wrapped around.
One company gets input from customers at every stage of new product development to find out exactly what they're looking for. That may be why 5 of the top 10 selling vehicles in America are built by the same company, Ford Motor Company.
With your help, our quality gets better all the time.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working. It's working.
Break through to a clean you'll never get from soap.
My
leaves a sticky film behind, but Zest rinses clean away, cleaner than soap.
You're not fully clean unless you're Zest fully clean.
The government is about to hand you a new law. It was intended to protect consumers from higher cable TV rates. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. It's loaded with special interests that could increase your cable rates. In fact, if this law passes, your monthly bill for basic cable will go up, not down. Well, if that's consumer protection, how come you're getting soaked? Time is running out. Call your senators and congressmen now. Tell them to vote no. Stop the bill that will raise your cable TV bill.
Nighttime backache? Try Momentum Muscular Backache Formula. Momentum has a maximum strength pain reliever to help relieve your backache so you can sleep.
My back feels great, and I slept like a log.
Momentum Muscular Backache Formula.
When Jack and Sally split...
Don't make a big deal out of it, okay? Because we're both fine. We're fine.
Judy worried about Gabe.
Do you think we'd ever break up?
Samantha moved in with Jack.
King Lear. Shakespeare never wrote about a King Leo.
Michael moved in on Sally.
Who are you?
Hey, is he living here?
It's none of your business.
And Gabe was left out in the rain.
How'd you get the name Rain?
Husbands and wives.
This whole thing is becoming very clear to me.
Rated R. Starts Friday, September 18th at a theater near you.
1 year ago, our country fought to save a tiny nation. But we'd just like to remind you that there's another tiny nation worth fighting for. And this fight is far from over.
Hi.
Buy it.
Hey, cut it out.
Excellent.
Look, I know you're watching the Discovery Channel right now, but you don't know what's coming on next. So you're flipping channels. You're looking through the paper. You're trying to find out what's on the Discovery Channel. I know this because I used to do it, too. Then I found out about this. This is the Discovery Channel's magazine. It's a program guide, plus great articles on adventure, science, history, nature, people. Great photography, award-winning writers, complete hour-by-hour program listings, and descriptions of all my favorite Discovery Channel shows. So now I finally have a way to plan what I'm going to watch. So what are you going to do? You're going to sit there just flipping around, missing out? Or maybe subscribe to the only magazine that tells you what's on the Discovery Channel right now.
Call 1-800-832-8343 to order Destination Discovery, and you'll receive 12 monthly issues for only $14.95. That's more than 50% off the cover price.
Hey, what are you waiting for?
We now return to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
Nature has provided a few clues to the impact of hormones on human brain structure and behavior with a genetic anomaly known as Turner syndrome. Most girls have 2 X chromosomes, but Aisling Esbaugh only has 1. As a result, she was born without ovaries, the source of the small amount of male hormone that women produce. So Turner syndrome girls, like Aisling, have no male hormone at all, and that makes them ultra-feminine, according to neurologist Helmut Nyborg.
They do not prefer to run around and have rough and tumble play. They do not go very much for climbing trees and things like that. Most of their interests are of, so to speak, a female kind, a more sedative activity.
Parents of girls with Turner syndrome often find in their children an exaggerated sense of care, home, and motherhood.
Before Aisling was a year old, we noticed that she was very protective of her toys and her animals and her dolls. She liked to be a real little mom. She liked to iron the clothes and wash the clothes and change their diapers and put them to bed, and wanted them to have a soother like hers in a bottle. So she's been real attached to her dolls from a very young age.
Twins, like Holly and Heather Williams, fascinate scientists researching the effect of hormones. Holly has Turner syndrome.
Mama, what are you wearing? Oh, look at how big I look.
Sister Heather does not.
What was that? We must have been to McDonald's. You got like Hamburglar on your...
They've been raised in the same environment, so any differences in behavior should owe something to their biology. They look different, but the difference is more than skin deep.
Heather was always more interested in active games, sporty type things, whereas Holly was the one who loved to sit for hours and play with her Barbie dolls and do their hair and dress them in clothes and the jewelry and the necklaces and have tea parties. Holly is more interested in quieter things and things that she can do on her own, learning how to cook. Wanting to know how to iron and how to do the wash, where Heather's just far too busy and too active. Holly loves jewelry. She's very interested in rings. She's always looking at them in the store, and earrings and necklaces and that type of thing, where Heather really can't be bothered. That's all frivolous. Holly's more into that kind of stuff.
Across the animal kingdom, male hormone is linked to aggression. When animals fight, the level of male hormone soars. On the evolutionary battlefield, male sex hormone is a vital weapon, according to anthropologist Helen Fisher.
Levels of testosterone tend to go up after two men are in a wrestling match. You know, nature would have been pretty shoddy if she didn't give us some fuel to produce a behavior. I mean, a certain amount of aggressiveness is critical. I mean, dialing back to the grasslands of Africa 4 million years ago, if a male didn't put down his tuber that he's eating and rush to fight off a charging rhinoceros, he'd die out. I mean, aggressiveness and testosterone is critically important to the survival of the species, and fortunately, men have a great deal of it.
In men, as in animals, testosterone is closely linked to ambition, drive, and competition. Violent sport provides both an arena and a cauldron for testosterone. It doesn't work off men's aggression. It actually increases male hormone levels. The hormone of machismo has a violent and an ugly side. A study of 4,000 Americans found a strong correlation between road traffic accidents and high levels of male hormone. Testosterone has also been linked to crime.
If you make a comparison between the level of testosterone over the lifespan and you compare that to the number of crimes committed by men, you'll find an almost perfect correlation between the level of testosterone in the blood and number of crimes committed. Also, when you study groups of males high in testosterone, you will see a higher frequency of aggression than in groups of males with lower testosterone levels.
But male hormone alone doesn't explain aggression. It's the interaction of the hormone with the brain. In this experiment, 2 groups of male rats were neutered, but at different times. They all lacked testosterone and were submissive. Both were then injected with male hormone. When attacked, one group gave as good as it got. The second meekly surrendered. Why the difference? The difference lay in the timing. One group was neutered just after birth, before their brains had been organized along male lines. Injected male hormone didn't work on the brain that wasn't male, wasn't primed to receive it, and so couldn't generate aggression. The other rats were castrated later, after their male hormones had wired the brain. So the injected hormone had a brain primed to react to it. As adults, their dormant but inborn aggression could be fired up by artificial testosterone injections. In rats and monkeys, then, it appears that hormones connect or disconnect the circuits for aggression. But can the same thing happen in the developing human brain? We've seen that Turner's girls, who produce no testosterone at all, are markedly unaggressive. But what of children who get too much hormone of the opposite sex instead of too little? A rare genetic disorder called CAH exposes some girls to abnormally high levels of male hormone in the womb. There are also children who were exposed to too much female hormone when their mothers were given an anti-miscarriage drug called DES. June Reinisch compared both CAH and DES children with their unaffected brothers and sisters.
The children that were exposed to male-like hormones were more independent, individualistic, self-assured, and self-sufficient than their siblings. And the children that were exposed to more female or estrogen-type hormones were more group-oriented and group-dependent.
Okay, Michael. Let's pretend that you're playing a game with your friends, and someone takes your turn. What would you do? Would you yell at them?
June Reinisch asked children to choose how aggressively they'd react in given situations.
So you're playing a game.
And we found quite clearly, both in the sister pairs and the brother pairs, that the one who was exposed to the androgenic hormone was more aggressive on this test, picked more physically aggressive responses than did their sibling.
Would you push them, or would you go into the house?
Push them. Go into the house. An adult.
Now, we can't tell you where exactly in the brain this is going on. Nobody knows that. But it seems quite clear, and now when you have a human study that matches what we find in the laboratory animals, that gives us more confidence in these human findings.
Now, they're gonna argue. Now, come on.
We humans are clearly not identical to animals. Our destinies are not etched in stone by our hormones. But the compelling similarities between the effects of hormones on the prenatal brains of both humans and animals may have much to tell us, not only about our differing temperaments and talents, but about our sexual preferences as well.
We will return in a moment to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
Now available for school, library, or personal enrichment on video cassette. The startling and controversial 3-episode miniseries, Brain Sex, only from the Learning Collection. Each episode comes complete with a professionally written learning guide. To order individual 1-hour episodes for only $34.95, or the complete 3-hour miniseries for only $79.95, at a savings of almost $25, call 1-800-221-5200 with your credit card ready.
Sponsored in part by the American Express card.
You have a different view of life. You don't want to get bogged down in revolving credit on bank cards. All that revolving debt, all that outrageous interest. This is not for you. You know how to get out of that trap. The card, the American Express card. Don't leave home without it.
The government is about to hand you a new law. It was intended to protect consumers from higher cable TV rates. Unfortunately, it doesn't do that. It's loaded with special interests that could increase your cable rates. In fact, if this law passes, your monthly bill for basic cable will go up, not down. Well, if that's consumer protection, how come you're getting soaked? Time is running out. Call your senators and congressmen now. Tell them to vote no. Stop the bill that will raise your cable TV bill.
Pizza Hut announces an amazing new menu policy. Buy one pizza at regular price and get any other of equal or lesser value for half price. It may change the way America buys everything.
Okay, one aircraft carrier regular price, any other aircraft carrier of equal or lesser value, half price. Any other molar extraction of equal or lesser value, half price.
Pizza Hut, where your second pizza is always half price. It's catching on.
The first World Trade Tower, regular price. We'll throw in a second World Trade Tower.
Somehow, people have gotten the idea the new Toyota Paseo is a wildly exciting, sporty coupe. The Paseo is a practical, sensible car. Okay, so it has some muscle. And a low starting price could be a big turn-on. And sure, you're going to be instantly popular. That's no reason to do something impulsive. Think it over. The all-new Paseo, a very practical car from Toyota.
They attack without warning. Deadly, ferocious beasts. But are they really merciless killers stalking prey, or simply frightened victims cornered by mankind? Travel the globe in search of dangerous creatures. Then at 10:30... take the wildest ride ever. Experience the Smooth Groove. Sunday, beginning at 9 Eastern, only on Discovery Sunday.
In the next few days, your senator has to decide how to vote on the cable TV bill. It was intended to protect you from higher rates, but it's so overloaded with special interests, it will make your cable rates go up, not down. If he votes yes, your monthly bill for basic cable will increase. If he votes no, you might think he's against consumer protection. Call now to send a message to your senator. Tell him to stop the bill that will raise your cable TV bill. Tell him it's okay to vote no.
Radio stations? Oh, if you like Manilow and the Carpenters, there's Coast and K-Big. If you like rap and Top 40, there's Kiss and Power.
Now, there's a radio station for the rest of us. The New Star, 98.7. Superstars of the 80s and 90s. Not a lot of soft, slow songs, and not kid stuff over and over. Just great songs. The New Star, 98.7. Superstars of the 80s and 90s. Finally, somebody got it right.
We now return to Brain Sex on the Discovery Channel.
I'm Michael Irving, and this is my art.
Prenatal classes can help parents prepare for the changes that children bring. But with or without coaching, their children's destinies are already being shaped. There's an independent chemistry at work. A cocktail of circulating hormones is gently biasing the brain in ways that will make us more or less feminine as girls, more or less masculine as boys.
Squeeze your hands close.
Abnormal hormone levels can be caused by the genes, as with CAH, or drugs, like DES. And there may be a third wicked fairy at the christening, stress.
Notice when you're at home.
Experiments have shown that when pregnant rats are subjected to stress, their offspring exhibit what in human terms is homosexual behavior. To test whether stress might have a similar effect on humans, a German research team dug back into one of the most stressful periods of recent history, World War II. They checked rosters kept by German scientists of homosexuals and found that a higher percentage of men born at the height of wartime bombing were homosexual. In another study, they asked mothers of both homosexual and heterosexual men if they had gone through a devastating event during their pregnancy. The mothers of the homosexual children were 6 times more likely to record a traumatic event than women whose children were heterosexual. The German studies proved highly controversial, and for Professor Gorski, the jury's still out on prenatal stress and homosexuality.
Women, I'm sure, respond to stress just as a female rat would do. And so it is consistent that stress might lead to a suppression of the testicular activity of her son, fetus, and therefore that might show up as abnormal or homosexual behavior. But again, consistency is not proof. And I think it's rather dangerous to look at records of from the war and try to find a stress that the homosexual's mother went through. It's easy.
But a recent American study of 250 women shows that mothers of homosexuals were twice as likely to have experienced a life-changing disaster during early pregnancy.
What we found was that the mothers of homosexuals reported an unusually high level of very intense stress during pregnancy. Stress hormones have at least a temporary effect of lowering the production and the release of sex hormones, particularly testosterone. So the sort of thing that might explain what we found was that the mothers are releasing these stress hormones into the blood system, and then the fetuses are carrying these to the brain, which signals the testes of the male fetuses to halt production of sex hormones. And if this happens during crucial times when the brain is being sexually differentiated, then you end up with a individual whose brain is somewhat left in a feminine mode, whereas the genitals and all of the other external evidence of sex suggests that it's a male.
These results echo animal studies, which show that hormones don't affect the fetus all at one time. First, there's a stage which triggers the development of genitals. At another stage, hormones influence our sexual orientation, the sex of the partners we'll prefer. Last to be programmed is our behavior and how typical it is of our genetic sex. Varying hormonal levels at any of these three stages account for the sexual variety of mankind, says psychologist Glenn Wilson.
You may have hormonal changes that are taking place in utero between those times, with the result that not all male homosexuals, say, are effeminate in their sex role behavior. You can get a butch homosexual male because the sex orientation has not been switched over to typical male pattern, but the sex role behaviors have been.
There's some evidence that abnormal exposure to prenatal hormones may be a factor in female homosexuality. But for the moment, lesbianism is less well understood. New findings suggest that for men, even ordinary drug use by a mother can affect sexual orientation.
One of the possible causes, particularly of male homosexuality, are certain drugs, common ones even like barbiturates, which can interfere with the ability of the male hormone testosterone to change the female pattern fetus into the typical male fetus.
Homosexuality isn't the only sexual variation that may result from a lack of testosterone at a critical time of the brain's development.
If it's consistent throughout pregnancy that testosterone is not being effective, then you may end up with an individual who's transsexual, male in body, but female in every other respect. So when they report that they feel like a woman trapped in a man's body, that is almost precisely what they are.
London entrepreneur Stephanie Ann Lloyd well understands the dilemma. Until the age of 36, Stephanie was a successful businessman named Keith. From childhood, Keith had never felt comfortable in his body. As he grew up, the discomfort became almost unbearable. He got married and had a family. Sex with men was the last thing on his mind, a mind which simply didn't fit his body.
I never imagined I would ever have sex again in my life. It was the last thing on my mind, and it wasn't of any concern to me, the sexual side. It's all about gender. It's all about, gender reassignment is called, it's all about putting right your body in line with your mind, because you can't change your mind. And here I was stuck with a female brain inside a male body, and it's a horrible combination.
Keith felt betrayed by nature and decided that what biology had done, chemistry could reverse. Estrogen treatment underlined the power of the hormones.
It obviously had a dramatic effect on me physically, because you start to grow boobs and your waist goes in, your hips come out and your skin alters. So that actually produce quite copiously amounts of milk, because that is purely controlled by hormone levels.
There was nothing frivolous in Lloyd's decision to divorce himself from his own body. Like any divorce, it was the product of pain and despair. Eventually, she found relief and fulfillment through surgery. At last, Stephanie was at ease with herself. The irony was that while she had survived the torment of transformation, others couldn't bear the change. The relationship with her family broke down, and prejudice barricaded her career path. But a new life and a new body in tune with her brain at last gave her the energy to start the business which has restored her fortune. What's made her happiest is marriage to her business partner, David. It's been a long journey across the gender gap, but to Stephanie, it feels like a homecoming.
I look back on my old male life as a bit of a dream, really. I mean, my husband was asked once, do you detect any difference between Stephanie and either your previous wife or any other woman that you've known? And he thought about it for a moment. He said, no, she even drives like one. Which is a real chauvinist remark. All right, I've got probably bigger hands than I would have done if I'd been born genetically a woman or something like that. But that isn't what makes me female. It's not my body, it's what's in my brain. And that, I think, is 100% female.
Lack of agreement between brain sex and body sex is, I think, what we create when we inject female rats with testosterone or when we castrate male rats. So to me, the research on laboratory animals goes hand in hand with our ability to interpret the much more complex individual, the human being, and what may or may not be happening in his or her brain.
That we are all born equal is a central tenet of our society. But we are clearly all quite different as well. And it's not a difference that can be traced exclusively to our parents, our culture, or even our television. The evidence suggests that there's a biochemistry at work long before society's expectations get to us. But scientists don't like suggestions. They want proof. That's why Roger Gorski was so excited when a junior colleague cried, "Eureka!"
He came rushing into my laboratory, my office, and said, there's a big structural sex differences in the brain. I said, sure, Larry, show me. And we set up the 2 projectors in a conference room. And as I said, the difference just jumps out at you.
This is the holy grail of brain sex difference. At the heart of the hypothalamus, mission control of the brain, was a group of neurons 4 times larger in male rats than in female. Gorski christened it the sexually dimorphic, or 2-shaped nucleus. Further experiments proved beyond doubt that hormones could change brain structure.
When we treat females with testosterone, then we completely masculinize the sexually dimorphic nucleus, so it's indistinguishable from that of a male. Or if we treat the genetic male with an anti-hormonal, then we have a feminized sexually dimorphic nucleus in a genetic male. So this particular nucleus, and remember I'm talking about the number of neurons in it, can be completely determined by the presence or absence of sex hormones.
Since that milestone discovery, others have followed the microscopic path to that same region of the human brain and found not only a difference between men and women, but between men and men.
There is a particular nucleus within the anterior hypothalamus, which is twice as big in heterosexual men as either gay men or women. In fact, the gay men were like women anatomically in that particular respect. So that little nucleus in the hypothalamus may well be the seat of sex orientation.
The discovery of differences in brain structure came from studying the tissue recovered from the dead. Now, advanced technology allows us to monitor the living brain. If homosexuality is found to be a natural biological condition, then so-called traditional moralists may need to re-examine their attitudes.
Next on Brain Sex, we'll investigate, with the help of brain scans, how men and women use different parts of their brain to solve the same problems, and identify which skills often come more easily to women and which to men. We'll visit a special school where learning differences between boys and girls are explored, and study the varying approaches of men and women to problems involving families. Finally, we'll examine how brain gender differences affect our approaches to love and sex, and whether these controversial findings, rather than drive us apart, can ultimately bring us closer together.
They're bizarre. They're strange. They're the weird wonders of the sky. Explore the amazing aerial history of drones, midgets, and mutations on Wings, next on the Discovery Channel.
Friday nights, let the Discovery Channel take you back to nature and into the skies. First, explore the majestic grace and raw natural power of the animal kingdom on Wildlife Chronicles at 8. Then travel north to Canada, where cougars, bears, and bighorn sheep abound on Profiles of Nature at 8:30. At 9, battle the Germans in their own backyard and dodge kamikazes in the South Pacific. Relive World War II's most incredible battles